We're live.
Okay. I understand we're live. I'd like to welcome all of you to the SMPTE Pittsburgh section meeting, our second virtual meeting. We have changed from GoToMeeting from SMPTE to Zoom from SMPTE. So this is our first Zoom meeting. Most of you are familiar with it. One little detail you should know in the upper right corner is a view box. And that will change the view that you see of us and the speaker when Mark is speaking. I believe it's the side-by-side would be the selection that would be most appropriate for that. Most of you are members, but I wanted to mention that membership includes the SMPTE Motion Imaging Journal, SMPTE curated blogs and articles, that's part of SMPTE Plus, and of course the SMPTE webinars and white papers. I'd like to thank the board members, especially John Luff, who is handling the program tonight, for their help. And tonight our topic is ATSC 3.0. Mark Aitken will talk about the future of broadcast television. And next month, we'll have Carl Paulson and Mike Strine, Carl from Diversified, Mike from ABC, talking about the software-defined facility of the future, specifically the ABC Galaxy project in New York City. So we also have a panel of the Pittsburgh chief engineers who will be discussing ATSC 3.0 following Mark's presentation. So without further ado, let me throw it to John Luff. John?
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Tonight's meeting should be really interesting. We've all lived through the DTV transition that began well over a decade ago. In fact, really began in the 1980s. But now we're facing another transition from ATSC 1.0 to ATSC 3.0, which offers all kinds of additional capabilities that we should know about as people involved in media technology. So tonight our speaker is Mark Aitken. Mark has served as Sinclair Broadcast Senior Vice President of Advanced Technology since 2011. In 2016, he became the president of One Media, Sinclair's innovations company. He's responsible for representing the group's interest in regulatory, technical matters and standards issues within the industry-related organizations before regulatory agencies, both in the US and internationally. Mark has been involved in the broadcast industry's migration to advanced services since 1987, participating in the FCC's Advisory Committee on Advanced Television Services, the so-called ACATS committee, and was also involved in ATSC, has been involved in ATSC since that time period. Mark is the primary architect in the formation of One Media, a driver of key ATSC 3.0 breakthrough technologies and systems. He's a member of the NAB TV Technology Committee, which is focused on the broader technical issues facing the broadcast industry. I have to say, I've known Mark for probably 2 decades plus in work that I did with Sinclair Broadcasting. Mark is the author of many papers dealing with innovative RF product developments, advanced digital broadcast systems design, implementation strategies, and holds patents for various RF devices and next-gen television systems. Mark is a member of the AFCCE, IEEE, and SMPTE, as well as a participant in NAB, ATSC, and other industry organizations. He's the recipient of the 2008 Broadcasting and Cable Technology Leadership Award, the 2013 recipient of the ATSC's Bernard Lechner Outstanding Contributor Award, 2018 awardee of the Future Industry Innovator Award, and 2018 Broadcast Television Engineering Achievement Award. The 2019 ATBA Persistence and Endurance Award. I think that's something that all of us should get after serving in this industry for a long time. He is a member of the ATSC Board of Directors and ATBA. And Mark, I'm not going to try to pronounce this, Sankaya Labs. You'll have to correct that.
Sankaya.
Sankaya. Okay. Mark is an engaging speaker. He's prepared to answer questions, which we would like to hold till the end. If you do have questions that you think about during Mark's presentation, please type them in the question box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll read the questions to Mark when he finishes with his regular presentation. Following Mark, we'll have a panel with the local station chief engineers, I think who you can probably see all of right now. So without further ado, take it away, Mark.
Well, thank you, John. And I thought I told you to edit that down to something meaningful, other than here's an old fart who has been around for as long as you have. So, I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group this evening. And I don't really have a regular presentation. None of my presentations are regular. I tried to, in the preparation, try to come to an understanding of what it is the group I'm speaking to is trying to get out of it, number one, and number two, what are the things that that you may not yet know about that you need to know about, and need to just as importantly inform your company, your leadership, and colleagues in the industry about. So I'm going to, and John, anytime you think there's a pressing question that needs to be had, feel free to go ahead and move that forward. So I'm taking, everybody can see my my screen, and so. So the question, the open question is, what is ATSC 3, and why should you care about it? And I put it in the singular sense because this is a very transformative period for our industry as a whole. We had, as we all know, the so-called digital transition, but the reality was it in very small ways left ourselves in the same business that we had been in the analog days. But the ATSC 3 standard is really mandated by industry leadership in order to stay relevant, or as some folks might say, to become relevant again. So as I go through these slides, some of these are you'll certainly get my personal opinions out of this, but I could tell you for myself, I've been engaged in seeking this reality of mobility for more than 2 decades, and some of you know that our organization wasn't always the friends to all of the industry in the early days when we were effectively demanding a standard that could support mobility. But if you look at this one chart, it's clear that there's every reason that, not exclusively, not to the exception of everything else, but we need to have a capability to reach our viewers. And we've often heard, anytime, any place, wherever they are. Well, you can't do that unless you're addressing mobile devices. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I just wanted to make it clear that the reason for engaging and spending the last decade literally on building this standard has been in the pursuit of not just mobility, but the ability to reach across all platforms. And the one in one media, by the way, is an acronym for Open Network Enabled. And so the vision has always been, how do we bring our content across all platforms, no matter what the network topology looks like? So without further ado, the first thing to grasp about the ATSC standard is that it is a standard of standards. And many of these standards stand fully on their own. you know, and you have segments of the standard that are related to the physical layer, to the upper layers, the presentation layers. For example, video standards, HEVC. And by the way, to be very clear, ATSC is not standing still with respect to standards either, because there continues to be ongoing development, and this standard was designed to literally embrace future standards and future opportunities. And if you think about video just as one of them, you know, HEVC is the codified central piece of video compression for ATSC 3, but at the same time, you have a host of other video compression standards that are under discussion, that are clearing the bars, so to speak, of other organizations like MPEG, and are in the process of being brought into the ATSC and future capabilities. VVC, for example, you may hear about, and you say, well, why would we even consider that at this point in time? Well, HEVC, while HEVC itself is a 4 times multiplier in terms of video capacity over MPEG-2, VVC offers a doubling of that yet again. So imagine what you do today in ATSC 1, being able to do tomorrow with VVC times 8. Think about that. So it's comprised of these multiple standards, and I'm going to go through some of the layers of the standard so that we can try to see where do these pieces fit in. And look, at everybody on this call has different unique focuses in their current jobs. You know, extending, you know, from design, repair, implementation to mopping floors, unfortunately. But I wanted to draw your attention to the ATSC organization itself. There are resources available at atsc.org that in addition to the standards, and I'm not recommending, unless you're looking for a way to go to sleep, that you start consuming all the standards. But some of the documents that are available there put those pieces together and are referenced on the ATSC site. The host station manual put together by Pearl, which is a group of broadcasters, is, I think everybody on this call may well be related to Pearl through their group affiliations, including myself as a member of Pearl, and just a host of not just standards but practices. How do you put those standards to work, and what are the kinds of things that do and do not work? So take advantage of those resources when you have the opportunity. Starting at the biggest picture side of this, I mentioned additional capacity, more channels of services, and more pixels. Certainly the ability to support 4K UHD, but with, for example, VVC, there are those who are holding out the promise for 8K. That's a business decision. I'm not suggesting what business you go in or what business your organization's in, but as you look across all of the capabilities, you need to really align those with the business aspirations of your company. Better reception. You know, a lot of this move to OFDM, for example, was driven by both an alignment with the rest of the industry around OFDM capabilities, but also to overcome you know, the shortfalls of a very difficult and increasingly difficult environment. You know, over the last 20 years, we've shed more than half of our spectrum, and stations are more tightly packed, and that leads to interference parameters that we didn't have before. So, so better receptions and reception in different environments, including vehicular, mobile, pedestrian, as well as indoor at one end, all the way to traditional antenna television, if you will. In the very middle of the standard is all IP carriage, and what that means is that all of the content that is conveyed via this new standard is content that can play across any IP-enabled platform. That means whether it's LTE, 4G, 5G, whether it's your your local ISP. If you're doing it today outside of emitting RF, IP is at the centerpiece, and it's certainly changed for many of you, I'm sure, the kinds of activities and the kinds of people that you hire to support those activities. The enhanced consumer experience. At the end of the day, we all make money doing television. Business lesson number one: keep your eye on the business at hand and build a bridge to the business of the future. So improve video and audio quality, accessibility, meaning this content plays across different platforms. And I'm going to show you some of the hybrid OTA and OTT internet interplay that goes on. Interactivity, and that interactivity is enabled by inside of ATSC what we call the runtime environment for devices, but it's really the native OS browser environment that takes advantage of IP and advanced emergency alerting, and I'll show you some of that. It's been a very large focus of our activity. New business models we've all talked about are becoming a reality, and in many of our deployments, you will see some of these services, including flash channels, which allow an individual to be watching the baseball game and have the choice to switch the service channel, so to speak, or to stay where they are. And we're going to be demonstrating that in our deployments inside of the next 3 to 4 months, flash channels. So you have this host of operating configurations, and it would be insane to try to cover them all. But the primary elements are the modulation technique, all the way from QPSK to 4096 non-uniform QAM. So count that. You got QPSK 16 QAM, 64 QAM, 256, 1024, 4096. They ride roughly in proximity to the literal limit of the capacity to produce bits inside of spectrum, bits per hertz. But on top of those operating modes, what you have are a number of different FFT or carrier count. You've got 8K FFT, 16K FFT, 36K FFT, and they're business model dependent. Again, if you're doing mobility, you're gonna use 8K FFT because of immunity to Doppler. If you're doing a fixed service, you're going to go with a 16 or 32K FFT because you want to take advantage of a higher guard interval to deal with multipath and other things. And then you have you have 11 different coding parameters that can be applied against all of those. So do the math. I don't remember the exact number, but you literally have hundreds of operating configurations that are possible. You have the ability to truly take advantage of single frequency networks, sort of an interplay and intermix between high power, low power, low tower, that extends coverage. And some of you have seen, we continue to battle against other industries in this domain. Distributed the DTS proceedings that the FCC most recently ruled on is being challenged for the umpteenth time in a decade by Microsoft and Google, who are trying to claim white spaces, the areas where today people can't receive us, but exist inside of our markets, exist inside of the established coverage area, but don't have service. And so we continue to battle that. And some of the most recent rulemakings are very much about protecting our ability to extend service inside of our contour, and at the same time, enable new business models like mobility and increased robustness. An example that I like to show is this one: more bits equal more bucks. We all know that. Well, this is ATSC 3 within a specific service profile. This one is 8K FFT. You can run down the list. The area in orange, if you will, is your high service probability area. So that means that that within the confines of that colored area, you can deliver uniformly with this operating parameter, uniformly 7.86 megabits per second. And you say, well, I got 19.39 megabits today. Why am I doing 7.86? Well, you're doing that because you've got a business model to support it. And this particular service model is based on mobile handheld reception, meaning this is service guarantee, service probability to small devices, not outdoor antennas 30 feet in the air, but small devices. That may not be your business model, but if that were your business model, you'd want to get the most bits possible inside the largest area possible. And so if you move over to the right-hand side, I've got the same FFT to support mobility, the same glider interval size to deal with multipath, but I've upped my modulation, I've upped my coding, and now I've got a net throughput of 20.21 megabits per second. But that is because I have increased the signal level, and I can now, at an increased signal level, serve those devices, effectively, doubling my service area in terms of population served, and increasing my bit throughput by a factor of 2.5. And what does that equal? That means more bits for more services for more people. Just one example of what an SFN provides, and the reason the industry has been fighting so hard to preserve the maximum capability with SFNs. And mobility, it certainly isn't just our battle cry, so to speak, but everybody is focused on getting to the automobile, getting to those other devices as well. So when you look at the core of the IP backbone, what you see is an interesting interesting interplay here. You have broadcast and you have broadband, and why is that? Well, they're all IP at the center, but it uniquely allows us to address devices that are not simply designed for broadcast. A television set, we're used to thinking of a television set as this one, one size serves all kind of delivery profile. But inside of that broadcast, we can support the same standards that flow across broadband networks as well. And so many of the terminology that we're becoming more and more familiar with in the broadcast marketplace, in terms of the way that we distribute our bits, the way that we distribute our video, the way that we hit our MVPDs, all of these are built into the center of the standard. There are security features that are an integral part. So battling, many of us, can remember some tense moments with things like Aereo, where our content is being effectively stolen and rebroadcast across the internet because it's quote unquote free. Well, there's never been a declaration that broadcast is about free for others to make money with our content, but free to the consumer at the point of intersect. So you've got security features built in all the way from the STL link through the tables and applications that are part of the standard, so that you have the ability to validate a relationship between the received device and the transmit or source of emission, because the transmission, as we'll see in a bit, might be OTT. And content encryption, most importantly, very robust content encryption. And I would say that if you do a Google on A3SA, which is ATSC 3.0, Security Association, A3SA, that is a very robust content encryption scheme that has been built and ratified by the networks as well as broadcasters, and is not yet being used universally, but a lot of that is because of the a layering of services that are being supported by the CE manufacturers. Resolutions, as I said, up to 4K UHD. Spatial scalability, meaning SHVC is scalable HEVC, which means a robust layer that can be easily received by and produce spatially, for example, a 720p mobile profile, adding an enhancement layer that allows that 720p to be scaled all the way up to 4K television. High frame rates for sports was really a push on the part of the networks. High dynamic range, as I said, ultra high definition UHD with the ability to support different types of HDR, including SDR, standard dynamic range, and wide color gamuts. Audio has been a focus for the CE guys because it's one of the pieces that consumers in studies have spoken the most about, which is a dialogue enhancement. How do I take what in AC3 is simply a center channel? How do I code and spatially code my audio content and allow the dialogue by itself to be enhanced above, above background noises, etc. User selectable audio tracks in different languages, and in the sports commentator, imagine it's the Steelers against the Ravens, and rightfully you are a Steeler fan, as am I, and you want to hear the play from the standpoint of your team. Supporting those capabilities were important in the audio side, and then immersive sound. A lot of these audio features, by the way, were driven by the ultra thin nature of panel displays today, necessitate an external speaker array, and adding adding capabilities there certainly made a lot of sense. And dynamic range control. This, for me, is the heart of what begins to distinguish television of today from television tomorrow, and that is the interactivity component. You've got a browser environment that is part of if you want to scribble down one acronym for one of the standards, it's A344. That is the interactive environment of this standard. And think of it as the browser. And as a browser, it can be supported on multiple OSs, because manufacturers do not have a standard OS. Some of them use Android. Some of Samsung's got Tizen. You've got WebOS by LG, and you have a host of other lower level operating systems that are incorporated in a television set. But this A344 interactive environment is the universal browser environment that rides on top of that OS. And it means that that broadcast and broadband content can be brought together, both either separately or in the context of bonded with the content by a broadcaster. And all these terms really, you look at this and you start saying, well, this is the internet. And it is, in fact, the reason the FCC chose to talk about quite literally broadcast internet, and design rules that allow broadcasters to take the best advantage of this environment. And so I'm going to break into a really quick walkthrough of that interactive environment that we have deployed in every market that we're hosting 3.0 services in, including Pittsburgh. And I think Mr. Kohler, I don't know if you still have your TV in the background of you, but it's one of those features that suddenly you go, this isn't the TV that I remember. So if you take a broad picture of where are we today, this map, the gold on the map is stations that are on the air, servicing those DMAs. The lighter blue are markets that are getting ready to be turned up and transitioned, and then the darker blue are announced target markets, which are largely markets controlled by the networks, and they have made a commitment to launch services by the end of this year that cover more than 70% of the U.S. population. So it's a pretty bold but important step for the industry as we get into the second half of this year. But we've chosen to take our OTT product. Some of you may know STIR. It's a free OTT product that gives you access to our local stations, along with a host of feature channels. But really, we have focused on bringing STIR into this interactive environment so that an individual station's primary content, primary leveraging relationship with viewers can be brought to the fingertips of those viewers inside of the TV environment. And so I'm going to try to walk you through that. So the reality is that the remote control with the launching of a broadcast app, as it's called, which is your option to move into this interactive environment. A little display moves across your TV, says, do you want to enable the broadcast app? And you say, sure. So you click OK, and suddenly that remote control, up, down, left, right, is your navigating tool, with the ability, effectively, the center being your call to action. So this is a screen from one of our early deployments in Las Vegas, NBC, and what you see on the side is a fairly familiar way to navigate around, and it's fully customizable. What you choose as your tabs, so to speak, are up to the host station that that may want to focus on news or traffic or sports or all of that, and take the existing whatever your CMS is, your content management system is, and tie that through microsites, if you will, inside of those tabs to leverage the OTT side of a smart TV environment to gain access to local television content or group-wide content. Automated alerts. We just literally finished a project with DAS, with DAS, formerly Monroe, in integrating the DAS stack directly to be able to receive CAP messages, whether those are governmentally launched CAP messages or local CAP messages through the newsroom, to drive automated alerts with a focus on packing around typical EAS stuff, for example, taking advantage of the ability to personalize. I failed to say earlier, signing into the app for the first time allows you to choose your areas of interest so that you don't have to receive everything. You want EAS, you haven't got much of a choice by federal mandate that a broadcaster bring that to the home or bring that to the mobile device, for that matter. But local school closings, local traffic, things of the sort, there's a degree of personalization that allows you to be brought local news flashes, if you will, of breaking events, and pack around that the kind of information that people are really most interested in. Not only do you get the beep and the squeeze, as our Fred Baumgartner would say, and you're in the EAS environment, but the ability to have instant access to weather radar, to the traveling route of a storm, whatever the event may be. We've devised a simple web tool that allows a broadcaster to make a choice, both in terms of the target audience, which gets filtered by the recipient on the receive side, and things of that sort. It also provides a broadcaster's feedback and understanding of the engagement on the part of the consumer. So you end up with the ability to derive user analytics in much the same way that you get them, from your internet, OTT or local website related traffic. Again, security, advanced advertising, the ability to provide sponsorships for some of this activity, sponsored by Ford, sponsored by Kia, and if you so desire, We haven't actually put this into action, but those in fact could become touch buttons to bring you into an advertisement or to signify to a dealer that you know, when you walk in, that the program, the reason you're there is because of sponsorship in your local television station. So I'll leave that. Deployments and evolution. As I said earlier, recommended practices. We're scheduling another Plug Fest because evolvability means that the ecosystem needs to work together to make sure that things actually work together. There are a series of planning teams that are focused on, inside of ATSC, focused on specific business applications. And they're for the SPE members who may be watching as well, the ability to get certification. So I'm going to go into the deployments really quickly, and then I'll hand it back to John. But here's a list of the markets by date. And you can see our first market in Las Vegas was launched. Its launch got delayed slightly by this thing called COVID, but we managed in the face of fairly significant odds to launch stations all the way up to, as you see, Grand Rapids, 16 markets in it, and these are markets that were fully coordinated through our partnership called BitPath, which is a partnership between ourselves and Nexstar. But I'm going to show you in a short bit. This is not about just Sinclair and Nexstar, but we've really pulled together a rapid deployment team. We've got clearance. Baltimore comes online shortly. This Washington D.C. is that we're involved with is going to be a centerpiece that's being supported by NAB, by Pearl, by PBS. It's hosted by Howard University. But as you can see, we've got an aggressive schedule, which is going to yield by the end of the year upwards of 3 dozen, just for our little group, so to speak, of stations. And I know one of the questions you're going to have is, well, how do you deploy how do you deploy station? How do you deploy a market? And here's where, guys, I'm going to stop just for a moment and bring up, unless, I don't know, could you folks read any of that?
Yeah, we could read that.
Okay, you could read that, then I won't pop out of it. So I'm going to go back to that share. So Baltimore is an upcoming market. And if you look down the left side, you'll see that the participants represented by the colored bars in Baltimore are going to be Scripps and Hearst, Cunningham, Maryland Public Broadcasting, and ourselves. And what you have to the right-hand side is the resulting channel map of all those participants. WNUV, which is it's actually a Cunningham station, is going to be retired from ATSC 1 service, if you will. And it becomes the 3.0 host. It becomes the station that participants gain access to. So you see, Cunningham gets 20% allocation of Spectrum Resources, BFF, which is Sinclair, 20. There's an equal split across all of these stations, Hearst, Scripps, and PBS. But one of the mandates in doing this transitioning has been ensuring that we don't lose revenue in our existing business. And so the moving around of channels onto 1.0 host is of critical importance. And so you see that the programming, antenna TV, this yellow programming was all part of Cunningham. Well, antenna TV moves over and is carried by WMAR, one of the participants. WBAL, which is a Hearst station, takes on Comet and Stadium. MPT takes on the CW in HD. And you'll notice that there are two stations, and the reason for that is a peculiarity in this market. In order to transition, you have to cover 95% of the population that a station that is converting already covers. In Baltimore, we were just shy of that, but Maryland Public Broadcasting has one station to the northeast of the market, and they have another station to the southwest of the market. So by carriage on those two stations, we actually increase the audience to meet the minimum 95% on the part of our license. And I'm focusing on this because now you have to begin to imagine the negotiations that go on, and it starts setting the footprint for issues like, how do I provide for video distribution? How do I, by the way, add additional content into an already crowded ATSC 1 environment? And quite honestly, our best weapon right now is this new breed of software-based encoders. That the most recent ATEM encoder, for example, being built on an AMD platform, can support actually 4 UHD 3.0 HEVC encodes, and easily allows more than one HD plus a host of SDs to be carried with in many cases an improvement in picture quality. So that's an important part. When we kick off a market, the first thing that people receive is a packet that sort of walks through, and I've not obviously driven all the way down, but a set of engineering drawings are derived collaboratively across all the market participants, so that people understand the issues of for example, video routing. How do I get my my primary programming from one station environment to the next station environment, as well as to the host environment of the 3.0 station. So the bill of materials, the implementation plan, we've got this down to the point where once we come to an agreement with the broadcasters that are going to participate, we can actually execute on this inside of the 90-day requirement of the FCC to provide notification that that a market shift is going to happen. And so I will make this available to folks. Direct to mobile probably doesn't belong here. And you know what? I can go into a whole host of other things, but John, this is probably a good point to hand it back to you and start fielding questions.
Sure. Really informative, Mark. I really appreciate it. We have one question so far. It's from Spike Jones. And he says, if the mobile device manufacturers continue to balk at including or enabling internal broadcast receivers in mobile devices, can the benefit of ATSC 3.0 ever be fully realized?
Yes, as a matter of fact. The phone that I showed very briefly that I chose the name of Mark 1 for we've got a handful of those devices now. It started out as a development device. We now have hundreds of evaluation devices that are being manufactured. We had to make decisions on embedded antennas and things of that sort. That's reason for development one. We're in discussions with two of the largest big box manufacturers to provide sales as an unlocked device, sort of the bring your own device environment, to begin showcasing these devices. And I think the most important thing is that you have a global effort underway to embrace ATSC 3. Sankya is an Indian fabulous chip manufacturer, also very involved in 5G. They're providing they're providing product, for example, to Dish with radio heads and other products. In India, I didn't bring up a slide that would even note that, but the Indian Standards Organization has embraced ATSC 3 and is in the process of codifying it for broadcast, what they are referring to as broadcast offload. In India, one of the most severe problems for the mobile environment is, what do you do when 40 million Indians simultaneously decide that they want to watch cricket? 3GPP, the standards organization for the mobile industry, have a profile. It's evolved from MBMS to EMBMS to FEBMS, but it still requires a unicast component, and very quickly, because it wasn't designed as a standalone broadcast layer, it folds under. I say all of that because there are conversations underway in India with Qualcomm about bringing ATSC 3 into the SoC to be leveraged for that broadcast offload. The reason, look at, we like to think, people tell us we've got a free market, but the free market you have with handsets, to the point of the question, is controlled by the carriers. Well, the carriers leverage what is on a device. And even though EMBMS is not effective, it is the only broadcast-like tool they have available to them, so they utilize it. So if we are successful in getting the physical layer of ATSC 3 into the SoC, system on a chip, your Snapdragon, your Octaset, I can't remember. MediaTek has got its own SoC as well. They're actually the largest provider of radios in the cell phone environment. Get the 3.0 physical layer into those devices, and suddenly it's a game changer. So you have not only India, which is a population of 1.3 billion. You've got ATSC engaged and making steady headway for the adoption of 3.0, an advanced version of 3.0 that embraces VVC, for example, one of the demands, competing for the second digital phase rollout in Brazil. You've got intense conversation with our neighbors in Canada. So yeah, it's not easy, but we continue to make steady progress, and I'm ever hopeful. It took 20 years to get from no digital to single carrier VSB to state-of-the-art OFDM. A state-of-the-art, by the way, that is so compelling that DVB flat out decided there was no reason to put any dollars in another physical layer. There had been discussions of a DVB-T3, but because of participation in the early phases of ATSC with DVB and pulling in the resources of that vendor community as well, I think we ended up with the best of the best.
I remember some of the same conversations around the time ATSC 1.0 was in conversation. People were saying, without mobile, is this ever going to be a real success? And obviously, it's a mixed bag of results, and it resulted in some of the changes that happened in ATSC 3. I have another question, Mark.
Yeah.
What about some of the large international broadcasters, particularly in China? And obviously Korea is already deployed, is that correct?
Yep, Korea is already deployed. So you've got the U.S. and Korea. Korea is on phase 3 of its deployment, widespread use. A lot of the activity that's going on around, I don't want to say people have thought we're crazy, but maybe we are. The idea of offload, to via ATSC 3. I'm going to quickly share let's see, I actually got to do this, a couple of slides. But the Koreans have been very much involved in the, in the progress that's being made for mobility, because it's a similar concern there, and they have a much older mobile broadcast standard, and as a result of that, again, for Koreans, it's a matter of relevance, number one, and secondly, it's about optimizing, optimizing the value of the spectrum that we have and that we share, and so we've got Sinclair and SK Telecom. SK Telecom is the Verizon of Korea. They're the largest cellular operator. We've got a joint venture, and they've demonstrated in very practical ways the offloading of broadcast-related content to ATSC 3 in both the LTE and 5G environment. We see a lot of value, and increasingly the automotive industry, there is a huge amount of automotive discussions that are going on, both at the leadership level of ATSC, but as I said, there is a planning team that is focused just on mobile, but the mobile industry is looking for ways to. I'll say this. So next Wednesday, we're going to be showing ATSC 3 being used to broadcast enhancement data for GPS, RTK data, ATSC 3 as the delivery mechanism, enhanced GPS or augmented GPS, depending on who you're talking to, offers the ability to increase the accuracy of GPS from plus or minus a meter to plus or minus 10 centimeters. So you have a 100-to-1. So literally the ability to guide within a 4-inch range via GPS. We're gonna demonstrate that using drones, and the implication there is, imagine being able to precision navigate drones for the purpose of package delivery if you were AWS. Imagine being able to tap into the millions of autonomous or semi-autonomous automobiles. Every manufacturer is going to have an EV inside of the next 2 years, and you've got a commitment for the entirety of the automotive fleet swing over to electric very quickly, and part of that is a larger vision of a better management of traffic flow. Highways can only get so wide, cars can only go so fast, but a huge part of traffic management, is at stake. So mobility is just one of those areas where the broadcast ability to deal with the hot most used content on the programming side, and the most used data on the universal delivery side becomes important. Otherwise, you're talking tens of millions of unicast sessions or the delivery of software updates.
Right. Do you have that handset handy?
I do have that handset handy at home, so it's not operating. It's a mid-level phone, Snapdragon 655. It supports it's a HD plus display. It's an unlocked phone, so you literally walk down to the AT&T or T-Mobile store, buy a SIM card, pop it in, and you have service.
Cool.
And that's the environment that two of these big box providers, brick and mortar, hope to use to draw people in. We're a bit away from that because of just the lead time. People may know there's a chip shortage right now. Lead times of standard chips that used to be 8 to 12 weeks are now stretching out into 30 and 40 months. It's one of the reasons that one of the things I will agree with this administration on is the need to build critical infrastructure like fabrication for ICs homebound. We don't have that capability outside of a very narrow vertical of IBM today.
We have one more question, and then we're going to go to our panel. From Ed Fraticelli, he says, will there be a need for ATSC 3 converter boxes like there were when the DTV transition happened?
Yeah, and those converter boxes, we've got a couple different samples coming through. We've got one which is a really neat one. So it's a ATSC 3. It's got two receivers in it. It's got an HDMI output, so it plugs straight to the TV. It supports A3SA content security. So high value content to that high value screen that you already have. On the one hand, it's also a gateway device, so it's got a wireless access point built in, as well as an internet connection. So you could literally plumb this into your home network and distribute across the home Wi-Fi environment. That enables you then to take a whole bunch of content. It's much like the smart TV in one sense. You can bring together broadcast over the air content with internet delivered content. You can enrich the viewing experience, dive into sports stats, for example, or go to that that flash channel because the governor, the governor's speaking for 20 minutes and it's interrupting with programming, or those weather events. So there are a number of set-top boxes and add-on devices that are coming to market, and you'll see a lot of those. I have it on good word that TCL, which is the largest provider of televisions in the well, actually, I think if you look at Walmart as one entity, Walmart delivers 60% of the broadcast related components to the consumer today. And So the Christmas season of this year will unleash a lot of those second tier players. It's not going to be just Samsung, Sony, and LG, but the second tier providers will be in.
Cool. I did do a search on Amazon a couple of days ago and found a couple of different receiver boxes along the lines of what you were talking about, Mark. So they're available now. We should probably move on.
One caution on those, though.
Sure.
One caution is that some of those devices have not yet been designed to support the HD home run device, if you will. The silicon dust device is not yet supporting A3SA. The other thing, by the way, I forgot to tell you, one of those boxes that we've got in the shop right now also has an LTE SIM slot. So if you don't have broadband, we're looking at that for some of the distance learning opportunities for broadcasting. So you could deliver rich content going one way, and have a return channel of you can certainly limit the bandwidth on that return channel, but provide for that two-way interactivity.
Pretty cool. All right, Mark, please keep your picture up here, because if you want to contribute to what we're talking about on the panel, I would certainly love to hear it. And I should probably introduce our panel, all of whom are chief engineers here in the Pittsburgh market, some of whom many of you already know. One of them is a new Pittsburgher, came from Cincinnati. As I remember, David, are you there? You want to light up your video again?
Yeah, it's not letting me. It says somebody stopped it.
Oh, Bill, if you can hear me, please light up David's video.
You betcha. You betcha. Sorry, David. Had to turn it off earlier.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. The con is
Hey, just because he's not originally from Pittsburgh doesn't make him.
Here I am. Yeah, I came here from Lexington, Kentucky, but
Lexington.
before that, I'm from Ohio. A big Buckeye fan. Been to a lot of the games when I worked in Columbus.
Hey, I like the bling you have going on behind you, David.
Yeah.
We all trust you're learning to be a Steelers fan.
Trying, yes.
Yeah. All right. So with us this evening are David Kohler from WPGH, Paul Byers from WQED, who's hosted quite a number of SMPTE Pittsburgh meetings at the station. Otto Schellen, I would say the same thing about Otto from WPXI, also hosted a bunch of different meetings for the section. And also Paul Nowakowski from WTAE, Hearst Broadcasting, all of whom are supportive of the section and were gracious enough to entertain the thought of taking some questions and hopefully having a little banter back and forth. Two of the stations are involved in the local ATSC 3 environment. That would be WTAE and WPGH, and also your sister station, right, David?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a local, as Mark had said, a local ATSC 3 on the air. I actually entertained, the reason I was poking around on Amazon, I thought maybe I should just buy one of these boxes so I can see what it looks like before the meeting, but $250 for an experiment here at home when I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get reception didn't seem like a great idea.
Hey, John, I will offer that when we take the delivery, it's going to be a couple more months with the EVT phone, but I get back and forth to Pittsburgh quite a bit. My wife's family is from Greensburg and Murraysville and that whole area. But I'll make a special effort in the coming months to visit you and drop something off.
I'll be happy to share a beer with you on that band.
The one thing I didn't say, in every market that we've launched, and we're the 3.0 host, we're doing the broadcast app, as I said. We're doing HDR, One of our channels in every market, at least one, is HDR. So you get that vivid, bright, high dynamic range and wide color gamut, and in 1080p. And there's at least one mobile channel. So I've taken several drive tests around Pittsburgh, with recording equipment in the car to bring back actually samples for the lab in India to check their mobility capability against.
Very cool. All right, guys, I have some questions that I put on paper here, just in case we didn't have a passel of questions that you were ready to answer from the audience. So let me ask the question that probably everybody wants to know. Tell us about the local agreement, who's participating and how that happened. It's on one RF channel, obviously, in town. I don't think any of us really know the details. The publicity has been pretty quiet about it. David, can you fill us in a little bit?
A little bit. Paul could probably speak more onto this because I came here in September and this came on in June. So that cooperation all happened before I arrived. I was busy out installing the Rhodium Sports transmitters that we're using. Actually, I unloaded these out of the truck. Yeah, that's really all I know is that Paul and my predecessor were heavily involved.
Yeah, it was a conversation between Hearst and Sinclair, and a lot of legal wrangling that I wasn't part of, but Mark may have been. But all the legalese that had to happen to make it happen. But yeah, they're carrying our 4.1 channel, if you were, our main channel on channel 22 on PNT. PNT is the 3.0 station in town, so they're carrying our main channel. And then in reciprocating that, we're handling their 3 sub channels on our channel. So we're handling Stadium, Comet, and TBD on our broadcast, on the 1.0 broadcast. So that's worked out. We used LTN as the provider to move the signals around town. So they take our signal to PNT and bring the signals from PNT to us. So that's worked out well, and that's how we get the signals back and forth.
How are you monitoring the off-the-air signal?
We have a couple off-air TVs. We bought 2 Samsungs, and so we got one of them in the shop that we kind of leave on, and Dave and his folks will call
I have
sometime.
this one right here.
Dave and his folks will call sometime. Is yours locked up? Is mine locked up? So it's kind of a back to the old days of HD. Our viewers are on one hand and know my first name, which is only a couple of us anyway.
Right.
So it's that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. On the test side, John, we're in the process of building out a NOC. One of the things that we thought about early on was how in today's environment are you going to best monitor this, and after spending some time for example, Crown Castle, who is centered out of the Pittsburgh area there, looking at the kind of NOC that they operate, you've got things like the Triveni Stream Scope. They have an enterprise version of that. You've got the Genesis companies through Test Tree have some products. And by the way, Paul and Dave, bug Harvey. Simply say this to Harvey. Harvey, I want a Hexalon. There's a company, I can't even pronounce their name. They build a box. It's about fully loaded. It's like $7,000, but it has the equivalent of the bitstream analyzer, just as you have in the Streamcope. It also has a spectrum analyzer that's got over 80 dB of dynamic range, and very shortly we'll be supporting even DVB SX2. So it's a multi-purpose device. As the ecosystem begins to build out, I think we're going to see more and more players in that arena. And of course, you've got you know, the Avitech and others, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff coming online. But David, tell Harvey you want a Hexalon. I'm dead serious about that. And Paul, you bug David about it.
And I also need a Mark I.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would all of our stations when we get this this next round of devices, we'll get a couple.
That would be awesome.
So I'm curious, there's 2 more stations in town represented here that are not currently in the multiplex. Otto and Paul, can you tell us a little bit about what your station's official stance is on participation in 3.0?
I'll defer to Paul first.
Okay, thanks, Otto. Well, our CEO is real high on getting us into 3.0, but unfortunately, we need a channel share partner. I mean, with like with Dave over there at 53, he had built-in partner, runs right on the same tower. We have a tower talk partner also in Ion Media, but one of the issues we're facing there is between the two of us, we have 11 sub channels going out, 2 HDs and 9 SDs. So there's no room for all of that on 1.0 where we put the other on the 3.0. So that's a conundrum that we don't have an answer for right now. So looking for a channel share partner. And in this market, there's only really 6 stations full power, or 8 if you count the CW and Cornerstone. 3 of them are already into a partnership, so that doesn't leave too many options. So you got any answers for that, Mark?
Well, yeah, actually, there is a phase 2 that's on the books for Pittsburgh. Cox just didn't make the cutoff in making the decision in time to be a part of the first phase launch, but there's definitely a second phase plan, and we've been working with Ion as well to be able to provide some relief, if you will. And another thing to consider, we're doing this in Baltimore. We're going to launch Baltimore with a number of the sub channels operating with ADC, MPEG-4. And we're doing that because we did a study about 4 years ago. The NAB did a study a couple years ago, and the timing tells us that better than 85% of receivers that are currently active in the market for over-the-air reception will support ADC. So that effectively doubles the capacity on the dot, the subnet channels. You can't do ADC for the primary channel by lawmaking. It must be free over-the-air MPEG-2 encoded service. But we'll get a very good read. We're going to run a little bit of a contest, if you will, in Baltimore, because people otherwise, there are going to be a few folks who probably will lose, one or another of those sub channels. But at the same time, as an industry, Paul's absolutely right. Finding a viable host for doing the packing, is on one side today, but it's got to swing to the other side over time. And so I think that ADC, will be the guinea pig and do it. You've got a general manager who's already, cringing, if you will, because he's got his numbers to make. But at the same time, we see that as a way to increase the hosting ability of a 1.0 station.
I think we'd still need a third station to get in with us, to kind of like what WTAE is doing and taking some subs from 53 and 22 and sharing that in the mix. So, if we could bring a third station in, I think we could swing it to move some of the sub channels, kind of spread them around.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got, as I said, we got participants from, all of the major groups in one or more markets, because it certainly couldn't happen without Hearst and Cox and Scripps and Tegna and, going on down the line to the public stations in some markets. We actually broke a significant barrier in this Baltimore deployment because we needed that additional stick, and we turned to PBS and were able to swing something with the FCC.
Otto, I'd be curious what your management is saying about the transition internally, if whatever you can share.
Well, John, that's easy because really all of those decisions are being made at much higher level than myself, and I believe even much higher than our general manager. It seemed like internally in the group, that is, especially at NAB meetings that we used to get together annually, we would always discuss it. It would be a big topic of discussion. And it seemed like we were flying down the highway 150 miles an hour towards ATSC 3.0. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily related, but it seems like we slammed the brakes on right about the same time that we went through a transition of ownership from Cox to Apollo. It seems more than coincidental, so I believe that did play a factor. I think we locally have a lot of advantages. We certainly have fiber links up to WPGH, if that would be an option somewhere down the road. As a matter of fact, we all stood in the parking lot when the Sikorsky helicopter was raising the antennas up onto the mast over there, and a lot of us got some good video of kind of the birth of ATSC 3.0 in the market. I'm personally really excited about it. I can tell you that our general manager, Kevin Hayes, that was one of our first discussions when we had our first meeting. It probably wasn't 2 minutes into our conversation that he told me about his excitement for ATSC 3.0. And, most GMs these days anymore aren't really technically focused. So to hear that was kind of exciting to me. I'm personally very excited about 3.0, and I hope that sooner than later, Cox WPXI becomes a player in the market, because I certainly want to see it happen.
I have every reason to believe it will, Otto. I know that there are discussions, and I know Apollo management. I know Steve Pruitt is very much embracing it. Part of the issues there are political differences, if you will. Imagine an industry that's not united. But at the same time, the other mounting pressure that everybody has got is the role of the networks, and as the networks increasingly are bringing their content to their own very well-defined solitary verticals. You look at NBC Sports, slipping off to separate outside of broadcast piece. You also have big players like Amazon coming in and snatching up Thursday Night Football, and I'm sure there'll be other erosions. So the networks, I know I've been hearing this since the day I joined Sinclair. And I think it's becoming more and more evident to people that the networks aren't really our friends. They've got their own business and their own interests that they're driving. And that's one of the reasons that we've been looking at well, number one, we've expanded, into sports with the RSNs, but we continue to look for data-driven solutions that broadcast can provide as supplementary streams that we think bring real value. Because if you look at the value of a bit, right? Take all the bits that a station emits at 19.39 megabits per second today, and look at what the value of that bit is, and compare that to the value of a wholesale value of a bit from any of the carriers, and you come to understand that a broadcast bit is not the same as a unicast bit, but a broadcast bit on that valuation scale is it falls a little bit shy of a 10,000 to 1 differential in the value of the bits that we collect on across all of our services, whether that's advertising or, as no secret to anybody here, our retrans. Our retrans is the thing that has allowed us to stay alive with the increasing demands of networks. So it's the alternative sides that we continue to explore, because we just see a lot of value there, number one, and the more it becomes real on the other side of the equation, the folks who would be the future user of those bits, the more it becomes real, the more engaged the conversations have become. And right now we've got, I think, 29% of the US already under the umbrella of at least one ATSC3 stick. Many of the other deployments that are coming up in the future, because they're larger markets, there are actually 2 3.0 host stations, because you've got a large number of stations in general. To Paul's earlier point, if you only have 5 or 6 stations in a market, heaven forbid 3 or 4, your options become very limited, and you got to get quite creative. And PBS, like I said, it took a lot of work to get the FCC, number one, to accept what we were willing to do with respect to the public station. But a lot of that came out of the hard work in the broadcast internet proceeding, number one, and it also it was hard work on the part of PBS and APTS to push the value equation that they see in ATSC3, because many public stations are already doing supplemental data through Spectra Rep or through one or another firm. And as we show the increased value of being able to do distance learning, for example, in an all IP format, they've argued well on the part of their membership that there are reasons to it comes down to the licensing provisions. By the way, put 5 lawyers in a room with the same piece of paper, and they all interpret it differently. So you tell me how you win.
I want to ask one more question, then I want to hand it back to John Humphrey to close out the meeting. So we close approximately on time anyway. I'd be curious if any of you have an opinion how long this transition from 1.0 to 3.0 might take. Are we 5 years? Are we 10 years? Are we 2 years? How far out do you think this is going to go? I'll start with you, Mr. Byers.
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I would say it's going to be at least 5 years, just because deploying receivers into the market and getting people, the first reaction people are going to have is, what do you mean I need a brand new TV? I just bought one, this year. And like Mark said, there are set-top boxes to convert, but if you want to get the full, UHD resolution and so on, then you're gonna need a new TV. So I think it's going to take a while. I'll say at least 5.
Paul Nowakowski?
Yeah, I'd agree, 5 plus probably until the set manufacturers get caught up and the public gets caught up with those, that there's not an increased cost to go that route. And almost every TV you buy has a tuner built in, and that the cost of a converter box comes down and it gets reliable to where they're deployed. I don't see it being a fast process. No.
Otto?
Well, I think it depends on how we define it. If we want to say that adoption begins with a set-top box that goes to monitors that we already have, I don't see why we can't do that within 18 months to 2 years. If we define it by full adoption by native tuners, I'm thinking we're several years down the road to do that. And I think part of it is that unlike the NTSC to HD TV conversion, that was partially federally funded, and we could have a much larger diversity of economic groups involved in that. Right now, people are gonna, I think, personally resist. I mean, I can say in my own household here that consists of 2 people, that there's one that says that she can't tell the difference between HD and SD. So there you have it. I mean, how many people are going to want to shell out a lot of money, potentially, certainly early on, to purchase a TV to do that? Of course, you'll always have your early adopters, and those people, some already have their receivers, others will have it within a year. But again, if we're talking about being able to receive an off-air 3.0 signal through means of a converter box, I don't know, 18 months, 24 months, maybe.
Mr. Kohler?
I agree with Otto. I think 5 years just to get receivers into the market, but I think the government might push that. Spectrum's valuable, and I have a feeling that they're going to do another repack at some point and make things tighter. It's probably not a popular opinion, but it's like Mark was saying, the bits are a 10,000 to 1 ratio. That 10,000 is a big number. It's a lot of taxes. I could see, a president saying, hey, we could balance the budget if we did this. And here we go again, packing again into smaller space. And ATSC 3 would allow that. And with the single frequency networks, it would maybe still keep our big stick, but let us cover the outer areas more conveniently without interfering into other areas. So we can, basically change the footprint a little bit of what's going on.
I'm hoping I'm retired before the next repack.
Well, I beat you to it. I retired before the first repack. I want to thank everybody, especially Mark Aiken and our panelists, for participating tonight. This has been really informative. I think it's a topic that for both consumers and technologists in the local market is going to have a lot of play over the next few years. And I can pretty well guarantee that when all the stations have lit it up and we have an ATSC 3.0 receiver in a couple of different places in the house, we're probably going to drop Verizon like a hot potato. We'll find other ways to get our content, which are far cheaper these days. And with that, thank you, gentlemen, and I will turn it back to Mr. Humphrey to close us out.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I want to thank Paul and Otto and David, especially since this is the first time that he's joined us, and the first time I've met him, actually. I want to close by reminding everyone about the June 16th meeting, the next meeting coming up, which is Carl Paulson from Diversified, Mike Strine from ABC. And as we've moved from analog to digital to data, that's the way the facilities are going as well. And this is a software-defined facility. It's the leading edge, and it is a project in process. It's not completed. It's called Galaxy. It's in New York City. I think that will be very interesting, and I hope that you can make that. After the June meeting, we will have a July and August recess for the summer vacation period. And then we'll be back in the fall in September. I believe George Hoover has a meeting topic set up for DSLRs and the difference between cameras, and that should be very interesting. So I'd like to thank everybody who attended. And I'll see you again in 3 weeks, I hope.
Thank you, John.
Good night.
Thank
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.